Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel and this edition of the Peso Pro Guides. If you're new here, I'm PPE and this is the Peso Pro episodes where we talk about money management tips and peso tricks. Today, we're gonna discuss a very exciting follow-up topic on GInvest. So if you haven't joined yet, there's actually a GInvest community on Facebook. You can join that via the link down there and you can actually see a lot of people. I think as of the recording of this video, we're about over 5,000 members in that group. That group is a great community for you to learn, especially for new investors, because there are a lot of questions being thrown and pwede kayong matuto from other investors like you. So in this video, we actually asked the group to submit maybe questions that they have, and I will try to cover as much of them as I can so that hopefully if you're a newbie investor and medyo nalilito ka pa on this whole UITF investing thing, hopefully this video is a good investment of your time. So let's jump right into it. This is my attempt to create an ultimate newbie guide. Hopefully it helps. And we're gonna talk about paano nga ba talaga to. And if you haven't joined the FB group, please type the link bit.ly/GInvestFB so that you can be directed to the group directly and you can join and really learn from each other so that we can all create an investing community. So let's start with who is eligible for GInvest. So GInvest is eligible for people who have GCash accounts. So you have to have a fully KYC'd, so you have fully process your know your customer or know your client steps. So if hindi pa kayo fully verified, then you also don't have access to GInvest. You also have to be at least 18 years old and you do not have a PowerPay Plus account. So these are accounts where GCash is the payroll account of a company. So if you have that, you cannot participate in GInvest just yet. Please reach out to GCash if there are other ways to get into the program if you have a PowerPay Plus. Now, once you have that, you just need to click on the GInvest link in your app and you will be directed into the page of the GInvest where you will see multiple different information like the one shown on screen. You will see also the following information on each fund. So for example, I'm using the Atram Peso Money Market Fund para makita nyo yung certain elements na nakikita nyo per fund. Here, nakikita mo yung risk profile and yung ano ba yung appetite mo. So for example, for my case, it's moderately aggressive. So kung ganun, meaning I actually have a higher risk profile versus this fund. You can still choose, hindi naman kailangan tugma, but at least you would have an information kung tugma ba to sa risk profile mo based on the questionnaire that you answered. You will also see the minimum initial investment amount and the minimum additional investment amount that is needed for this kind of fund. Also, meron ding fund description. This is very important because this already tells you at least an overview kung saan ba naka-invest yung pera mo. In this case, it includes time deposit placements in Maybank, China Bank, BPI, etc. as of this certain point in time. And ano ba yung mga objectives of the certain funds. If you're talking about equity funds, nagbibigay din sila ng examples kung saan ba naka-invest yung account mo. What does that mean? Ano ba talaga yung binibili natin? So in GInvest, we actually got a few questions of ano ba kaya yung okay na bilhin or magkano ba yung pwedeng i-start or ano ba yung minimum na hulog, ano ba yung additional hulog. So in GInvest right now, there are 5 funds as of the recording of this video. 3 funds are local Philippine funds, meaning yung investments are invested only in the Philippine market. So that is the Peso Money Market Fund, Total Return Peso Bond Fund, and the Philippine Equity Smart Index Fund. Basta local fund, the minimum amount is 50 pesos, 50, for the initial investment and any top-up. So, pwede kang magdagdag ng kahit anong amount as long as minimum 50 pesos and kaya ng GCash wallet mo. Now, there are 2 other funds that are global in nature or international. So, this is the Global Technology Feeder Fund and the Global Consumer Trends Feeder Fund. So, feeder funds, kasi itong fund na to actually feeds more than 90% into another fund na nasa labas ng Pilipinas. So in this case, may mga target fund siya na sinusunod. Now, the minimum for this is 1,000, both as an initial investment and any top-ups that you will create or add into the fund. So hindi ka pwedeng mag-add anything lower than 1,000 pesos. Now, if the question is, ano ba yung okay na bilhin? It really truly depends on you, but we're gonna talk about some of the things that you should consider in the next few minutes. So stay tuned. Before we get into ano ba yung okay bilhin, let's discuss first, especially for the newbies out there, what are UITFs, right? So UITFs are Unit Investment Trust Funds, which in very, very simple terms, isipin nyo lang na isa siyang fund na nagpo-pool ng lahat ng investments ng maraming investors. Basically, you, me, and everyone else who is participating in the fund are all investors na bumibili ng units into the fund. Now, think about it this way. Yung isang fund na yon, dinidivide siya into a number of units. So, if you look at this example, this pie has 6 units. So, assuming lang for simple terms, every time you buy into the fund, you're getting a portion of the unit. Hindi naman kailangan na 1 portion talaga or 1 unit yung bibilhin mo as long as the minimum 50 or 1,000 is made. So you can actually buy point something units into the fund. So hindi naman kailangan na 1 each ka bibili. Unlike when you buy stocks, typically you follow a board lot. Now, in the fund, there are processing times. So, may mga kailangan kayong i-take into account, especially if you're thinking about liquidity or if nag-process lang kayo at hindi nyo pa nakikita yung amount in your GCash wallet. If you buy, meaning bumili ka ng unit, so nag-join ka into the fund, there are several banking days. It ranges from 2 to 4 banking days depending on the type of the fund. And if you're buying, if you're selling your units, meaning nakabili ka na at ngayon gusto mo na siyang ibenta for the prevailing price, meron siyang processing time. There are 2 sets of times to think about. Merong transaction allocation, so yung pag-process ng sell order, and the amount of time that it will require for that sell order to actually reach your GCash wallet. So ito yung nakita nyo on screen, meaning for the global funds, it may actually reach 11, so 4 plus 7, so equals 11 banking days. So banking days po yung bilangan, hindi kasama yung weekends and any public holidays that may fall within the time frame ng transaction ninyo. So just take note of that. Okay, going back to this concept of the UITFs. Think about UITFs as a basket of different investments. So like for example, what you have in front of you is a basket of different kinds of fruits. So ngayon, this basket of different kinds of investments, meron siyang isang value lang nakikita mo. Kasi for example, pag bumili ka ng fruit basket, while may individual prices naman yung fruits na yan, yung binibili mo is the price of that basket, especially during Christmas time, for example. Right? So pag nabili nyo yan, depende kung ano yung value. Let's say, for example, 1,000 or 100, whatever the prevailing value of that basket is, yun yung binibili nyo na unit. Now, how do they come up with this? Basically, in very simple terms, the value or the NAVPU or the net asset value per unit is really the value of the total investments inside the fund minus any fees or mga management fees, legal fees, and audit fees. Minus na lahat ng yun divided by the total number of units. So, in our very simple example, if yung value ng lahat ng fruits na to ay 1,000 and dinivide niya to into 10 units, then the NAVPU is 100 per unit. So, having that concept in mind ng basket of fruits, every time you think about NAVPU, ganun lang siya. So, may portfolio, may asset, naka-mark to market yung valuation ng asset na yon, meaning kung ano yung prevailing price of that asset, or stock, for example, kung ano yung actual price ng stock na yon, minus all of the fees, yun yung NAVPU. So, this is just a bit more technical explanation that I actually lifted in the last GInvest live stream. But essentially, isipin nyo lang, si NAVPU, 2 very important things. One is its mark to market, meaning ano yung current value of the investments inside. So, in fruits terms, magkano ba yung each ng fruit na yan in the basket? And number 2, it's already net. So, kung ano man yung fees na mga tinatanggal, nakatanggal na siya when you see the NAVPU. So, you actually don't get charged another fee. That's why wala kayo nakikitang service charge or transaction fee when you buy and sell because it's already embedded in the NAVPU. Now, ito, may question tayo na nakuha before na, for example, let's say, ito yung NAVPU ngayon. So, dito, 110.22. So, dito, kung nag-invest ka ng 100, magkano ba yung makukuha mo? So, as we said earlier, you can buy mga butal na units. Hindi kailangan na 1 unit talaga yung bibilhin mo sakto. So, if you invested 100 pesos into the money market fund, then essentially, kung ang NAVPU at the time of transaction, depending on when you triggered the buy order, kung 110.22 siya, as the graph shows, then you actually buy 0.91 units. So, dinivide lang yan, 100 divided by 110.22, you get 0.91 units of the fund. Ngayon, yung 100 mo, theoretical number na yun, so nawala na siya. Kung ano yung value ng units na yan eventually, kasi gumagalaw, kung ano yung value na yun, then essentially, yun na yung magiging total value of your investment. Now, isipin natin na, for example, yung basket na binili mo can be comprised of different things. Hindi naman kailangan lagi na yun yung same fruits na binili mo. So, for example, if bumili ka ng basket, di ba pa iba-iba yung mga laman nun ng fruit basket na yun. Meaning, each of those fruits or stocks can perform very differently from each other. So, maybe si grapes nagtumaas or nag-appreciate yung price, pero si orange, kasi for some reason, bumaba yung price, right? Since you're buying the entire basket, so yung total market value noon is yung nakukuha mo. However, let's differentiate this kung hindi ka bumili ng basket, bumili ka ng stock lang. Meaning, you went into a broker account and bumili ka ng isang stock lang. So, for example, let's say you bought Tesla stock. Here, let's say, yun yung grapes, for example, in our analogy. Now, kung bumili ka lang ng basket of grapes or Tesla stocks lang, wala nang iba pang laman, then any gain or loss on the Tesla stock, yun lang yung mapaparticipatean mo. So, if in the example, May 1, 300 yun, May 5, naging 330 yung presyo, then nagka 10% gain ka. 100% makukuha mo kasi wala siyang kahalong iba. However, syempre, kung naging mas mura yung grapes or i.e. yung Tesla stock mo, bumaba siya to 250, then you also suffer a 17% loss or a 50 pesos loss per share. This is the difference kasi sa stocks, kung ano yung meron ka na company na pinag-investan mo, kung ano yung galaw nun, baba or akyat, then you fully participate in that stock. Now, in UITF, since you're buying a total basket, in this example, right? Let's say si grapes, 10% lang siya ng iyong fruit basket. So, if you only bought the basket, at si grapes, nagka 10% siya na gain, meaning, yung total basket mo, if everything else did not change, yung total basket mo nag-gain ng 1% lang. Kasi 10% growth, tapos 10% share. So, pag minultiply mo yon, you get 1%. Meaning, kahit nag-gain itong si grapes ng 10%, hindi mo makukuha yung buong 10% for yourself. Which can be maybe a sad thing if you think about it. Pero kung pabaliktad naman siya at kung si grapes ay nagka 30% loss, for example, pero everyone else hindi gumalaw, meaning status quo lang sila. So, since 10% lang si grapes, then yung loss mo is only also 3%. So, hindi mo rin isa-suffer yung buong 30% loss. So, I hope that sort of clarifies the good features of a UITF because essentially, dito pa lang naka-diversify na ang portfolio mo kasi hindi siya naka-isang company lamang. Right? So, you buy into several different kinds of companies or even bonds or money market instruments. So, yun yung value of that. Now, let's think about different concepts that you see in the app. So NAVPU, you will see as a daily refresh. So net na siya of trust and management fees. So you will see that. However, in the GInvest app, you only see this on a weekly basis. So medyo hindi siya super accurate. So you can actually utilize these websites to check kung ano ba yung nangyayari sa mga NAVPU. So may question na yung nakuha na kung saan ba makikita yung buong chart yearly or maybe asked differently, saan ba makikita yung performance on a day-to-day basis? Kasi nga, every working day siya na update. So you can go to www.uitf.com.ph, atram.com.ph, or the Bloomberg website para makita yung different NAVPU so that you are able to check kung ano yung movements ng market. Now, in the GCash app, I have seen personally that there are some lags in terms kung ano yung nakikita dun sa chart because it's a weekly chart. But rest assured that your transactions are being processed depende kung kailan naka-trigger and the processing times that are involved. So meaning, kahit hindi pa siya nag-update into the chart, typically they will always reflect the latest available NAVPU that is applicable to your transaction. Okay. So why is the NAVPU very important? So may question tayong nakuha na pwede bang mag-invest ng tig 1K lang and then balikan na lang siya after several months. Then isell ko on my gain. Now, this question is very personal. So walang makakasagot kung pwede or hindi. Literally, pwede mo siyang gawin. But is that the best option for you? You can only decide. But there's a strategy called peso cost averaging na here in this strategy, ang ginagawa ng investors is, since no one really knows kung kailan umakyat baba yung market, all you can do is maybe on a set interval, let's say payday. So every 2 weeks, you just buy 1,000 pesos of investment. So the NAVPU will just update, depende kung ano yung available na NAVPU on that date. So bili ka ng 1,000. If you look at the example we have, you will see na merong different types of units na nabibili yung 1,000 mo depending on the price. So kung mas mataas, like the February 14 example, then you also buy lesser units. Pero kung mas mababa, like the January 15 example, then you buy more units. So you actually get more units for the same 1,000 pesos. Now, why is this called cost averaging? Because essentially, bumibili ka lang and the average price or the average price per unit is being averaged depende sa lahat ng mga binili mo. So, if nag-decide ka na sa April 17 magbebenta ka, the NAVPU is 192.75 for example, all you need to do to count is yung 31.63 kasi ito na yung units mo in the basket times the current price is 6,097. So, yung 6,000 nilagay mo in the last 6 paydays, naging 6,097 na or a 97 pesos gain or a 2% gain. Essentially, this is the way that you should think about your investments in UITFs. You can obviously scale this na nag-save ka ng 52 weeks of the year or maybe every payday. So, mga 24 times ka nag-invest and then you only sell kung ano na yung existing NAVPU at that point in time. You can also even choose na hindi ka na magdadagdag. So, pwedeng isang beses ka lang naglagay ng pera and then that's it. And then you just wait for the NAVPU to increase. Right? So, you have to consider your own goals and your time horizon. Gaano ka ba katagal pwedeng mag-antay and ano ba yung performance na ini-expect mo from the fund. This is very personal, so nobody can tell you when to withdraw. Pero, for example, if your goal has been met, so let's say, after 5 years, nag-invest ka and you wanted to grow to a certain amount, if that amount has been hit, then maybe it's the right time for you to actually sell your units if may paggagamitan ka na ng pera. Then, this question, we always get, better po ba bumili ngayon? So, kasi merong downward trend. So, typically, the answer is yes. Kasi kung bumili ka nung downward trend or the units are very cheap. So, balikan tayo sa example natin. If you bought at 182.05, yung buong 6,000 mo should have gotten you 32.96 units. So, if lahat isang bagsakan mo binili nung mababa, then you get more units. Pag binenta mo siya at the same price, then mas malaki yung tubo mo, right? Typical example, if bumili ka ng orange, let's say hindi napapanis yun, you can hold on to the orange. Let's say bumili ka at 50 pesos, 2 months down the road, nagka-supply issue yung orange, so naging mahal, right? So you can now sell your orange for maybe 60 pesos per piece, I don't know. So mayroon kang 10 pesos na kita. It's the same concept. Now, if bumili ka at the 60 pesos, syempre, at laging stable na yung supply ng orange at bumaba siya sa 50, then you also suffer a loss. The problem with this, pag tinanong niyo ako, so okay pala na dapat bumili na lang ako noong January 15, binuo ko na yung 6,000. In this example, the answer is yes. Pero, you only know that because we're looking at past data. Hindi naman natin alam during the time na yun na pala yung mababa. So, the problem here is no one knows when the lowest price is ahead of time. Walang makakasabi na, oh, yun na yung mababa na talaga yan. So, you can look at indicators or trends, but again, no one really knows. So, what the suggestion is, you have options that you can average down, meaning you can do regular investments, and then mag-add ka na lang if you feel that the NAVPU is lower so that you get more units. Remember, every time bumibili ka ng units, yung units na yung pinangahawakan mo, and the price of those units can go up or down. So, may question tayo na much better po ba mag-sell agad pag tumaas ng husto na market value ng chart and then buy ulit na lang po pag bumaba? So, ang sagot talaga is it depends. But, okay, let's think about this in a very logical sense. The answer is actually yes. Pero, it depends on a lot of different factors. So, for example, if tumaas talaga bigla sa chart, hindi mo alam kung yun na ba talaga yung mataas or maitataas pa. So, some cases, if you want to really wait it out and if you believe in the long-term potential of the fund or the stocks or the bonds underneath the fund, then maybe it's a strategy to hold on longer term. There are two types of gains and losses. So, merong isa na unrealized or tinatawag natin minsan na paper gain or loss. Ano ba yung meaning nun? Meaning, yung nakikita niyo sa chart na tumataas baba na price of your units are all paper or unrealized gains. Meaning, nandyan lang yan. So, if tumaas yung NAVPU today, di good kasi tumaas yung value of your investments. Pero pag bumaba siya bukas, kasi units pa rin siya, it follows the NAVPU kung ano man yung galaw ng NAVPU. So meaning, yung gain mo, pwedeng nandyan na ngayon, pero bukas, pwede rin siyang mawala in case of a market correction or if the stocks went down, for example. Now, obviously, merong realized or actualized gains or losses. Ito naman will be when you've actually sold the units. So yung, let's say may 1 unit ka na tumaas and sinell order mo talaga. Meaning, nabenta mo na yung unit mo at this price. So, na-actualize mo na or na-realize mo na yung gain. Now, kung ano pa mangyari, kung tumaas pa yan or bumaba, wala ka ng participation because the unit has already been sold. Meaning, wala ka na dun sa fund. Hopefully, that helps explain things. Now, we're nearing the end, so hopefully, you're still with me. This is a good example of and answering the question earlier on. So, dito naman, sabi niya, okay ba pag bumili ka? So, for example, let's go back into Feb 28, 2020. So, here, yung NAVPU, let's say, for example, is 100. So, yung NAVPU, nag-invest ka ng 10,000. So, meron kang 100 units. So, 10,000 divided by 100. May 100 units ka. Now, in April 17, 2020 rather, yung NAVPU tumaas to 110.26. So, dito, yung 100 units mo times 110.26 is 11,026. So, 10% gain, more or less. Right? Nung time na yun, syempre, yung nakikita mo na portion of the graph is hanggang dito lang. So, feeling mo, when you bought it in Feb, mababa yun kasi 100 lang siya, then tumaas na siya. Now, thinking na, okay, pwedeng benta ko na ba ngayon, then bili na lang ako pag bumaba na siya ulit. In this case, if you look at this, look at the future of this graph until the end of the year 2020. Never na siya ulit bumaba under the 110 range. Maybe may konti lang dito na days. Right? But generally, for the balance of the year, wala nang bumaba than 110. So, again, really depends. If you wanted to actualize the 10% gain, then yes, kung binenta mo siya, hindi nag-gain ka ng 10%. But, if hindi mo siya binenta and nag-hold ka lang, then by December 30, yung NAVPU actually became 172.18. So meaning, yung 100 units, if hindi mo binenta, naging 17,200 siya. So you gained 7,000 or a 72% gain in a year. So again, ang problema at that point in time, in April 17, you thought na nag-peak na siya, pero hindi mo naman talaga alam kung anong mangyayari sa future, right? So ang question is, so okay po ba na hindi na ako magbebenta kahit may 10% gain or antayin ko na lang na tumaas palalo? Again, this is one example of historical NAVPUs. There are also funds na pababa yung trajectory. So pag tinignan nyo ngayon yung Philippine Smart Equity Index Fund, pababa siya. So, pwede din namang pababa yung trend. And so, if nag-sell ka at 10%, maybe you are actually better off than waiting by the end of the year. So, alam kong medyo confusing, but really, kaya laging nakukuhang sagot ninyo is, it depends, kasi it really depends kung ano yung goals nyo. So, here, ang suggestion is, if you don't have needs for the money, and if you believe that the trend will continue, kaya laging sinasabi na hopefully you're in it for the long term. And long term really means a few years. So, and if you're there, if you believe the fundamentally yung fund or the underlying investments will really increase in value, then the suggestion is for you to hold longer para ma-maximize yung earnings. But again, it's no guarantee. Pwede din naman na nag-hold ka long term, but the fund also decrease in value in that long term. So you really don't know. So you have to keep assessing what your time horizon and goals are. Now, as a last question, dito, ang question is, gaano ba katagal yung advisable holding period? So I actually took this from the GInvest live stream, and typically, may mga suggestion for you to hold equities from between 3 to 5 years. Some are actually saying 10 years, and that's all really part of what your strategy is. If it's for retirement, then maybe if you're young, then you have a bit more time. But generally, these are the recommended time horizons. But again, depending on what your goals are, it may really change. So that's it. This is the first installment of our Peso Pro guides on GInvest. I hope that was able to answer most of your newbie questions. I hope to hear more from you in the GInvest community in Facebook. So please join us at bit.ly/GInvestFB. And if you have questions, comment them down below so that I can read them and try to answer. If we gather more questions on specific topics, we may have second installments of the same videos. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and the like button as well. Hit the notification bell so that you're notified when new videos are up. And I'll also post the GInvest intro video and the live stream right here so that you can access them right after this video. I'll see you in those two.